Hello everyone, how's it going? Well, here's my second update since I've been off YouTube for a while. I thought I'd make a update video on my 2007 Ford F-150. I'm going to start off by saying I apologize for the truck being dirty as usual, but we've got a week's worth of rain coming in, and it's been quite a while since I made an update video. And I just said to hell with it, so I'm just going to make a video of it like it is. So right now I'm basically just going to kind of go around the truck and what's going on and what's been done to the truck recently. Not a whole lot, but there are a few things. So to start off, you may remember, if you're a long-term subscriber of mine, that I made an update video about 2 years ago, and I was complaining about a grinding or whining noise coming from what I thought was the rear end. Well, that same year, about a month later, I took it to the Ford dealership, and they diagnosed it that it was this right front hub bearing. The bearing had went bad, and it had some it was just, the bearing had started making noise. It had slack in it, and it was just driving me nuts. It also had caused my previous tires to go bald on the outside edges. Or not only the other tire was fine, but this one had wore this entire side edge off. And I thought it was an alignment issue, but it turned out to be that hub bearing. And once I got that hub assembly replaced, I had an alignment done, and the tires have been wearing perfect ever since. This is one of the things that I did to the truck after I had that hub bearing fixed, was I put on a set of BF Goodrich all-terrain KO2 tires, size 265/65 R18s. And these are really good tires. These are 10-ply heavy duty, load range E. Despite the fact that they are aggressive looking and the tread is kind of aggressive, they are not loud. The tread is very soft. And the only issue with going to a 10-ply is this truck already rode really rough. So it rides that much rougher now. But that's the only complaint I have with these tires. And as you can see, I now have 142,273 miles, and I have really, the only thing that I've had to do was the hub bearing, and I do have a small leak up here at this third brake light, and these trucks are real common for that issue. And what happens is that there is a tunnel or something in the top of this cab where when it leaks past this third brake light, it will run right along the top of the cab on the inside here, come down, and it'll drip right behind this dashboard. Here is something else I added to the truck about 2 years ago, and it is a AFE Stage 2 dry intake. Uses a dry filter, no oil. It's just a washable filter, and it sounds really good. I have some previous wide open throttle videos, and you can hear it sounds really good. It's got a nice deep roar to it. The only thing about this intake though is I was hoping it was going to give me an MPG advantage. But it's the same as before. It didn't go up, it didn't really go down, it stayed pretty much the same. I recently replaced all 8 coils on the engine. I started having a bucking issue again at around 40 to 45 miles per hour, which is the 3 valve is known for. It's just very typical when this engine gets misfires to get a really, I mean, if any of you own a 3 valve that has ever misfired, you know what I'm talking about. These things have a harsh jerk like you think that it's fixing to drop the drive shaft or something. But that started back again, but this time it ended up being a coilover plug. Replaced the coil packs, all 8 of them. Spent about $300 on that, and it's good as new. That was a year ago, and this truck just runs beautiful. The 3-valve gets a bad reputation for cam phasers and timing chain tensioners. The timing chain components, really just the guides and the tensioners, just everything to do with the timing components have been a major issue on the 3-valve modulars, and mainly because it all goes back to the tensioners, which are hydraulically actuated, and they have seals that mate up against the block where they go, and those seals are known to blow out over time from the heat up and cool down spells. The seal rots out and it just decays until it's nothing left, and the oil leaks past that tensioner seal, and as a result it loses tension on the timing chain. So the timing chain can basically just wave and flap back and forth, and that will break timing chain guides and can also cause the engine to jump time. And as a result, since this engine is an interference engine, meaning if it gets out of time, the pistons will contact the valves, and it will destroy the piston and just destroy the whole engine. Another thing on 3-valve engines you have to watch out for is seized roller rockers. The roller rockers are the actual rocker arms that open the valves, and this engine is overhead cam, so they only have rocker arms, no push rods. But when the rocker arms seize, what will happen is later on, as you're running it, and you will hear a ticking noise, they will actually, somehow or another, the rocker arm breaks, and when it breaks, it takes the valve keeper out. The valve keeper is what keeps the valve from dropping into the cylinder. That's another way these engines die. And some people have tried to keep driving, thinking, oh, it's just a ticking noise, nothing to worry about, and it ends up grenading the engine. The timing chain tensioners are also the cause of low oil pressure in these engines in a lot of cases. Melling, which makes high pressure oil pumps, I believe the M360 is the one that I've seen videos on, but they always blame the oil pumps on these engines for being the cause of low oil pressure. That is not the case. On a lot of 3-valves, the low oil pressure is either due to a blown out timing chain tensioner, or it may be a bad thrust bearing on the crankshaft. 2005 through 2008 and maybe even later 5.4 3-valve engines have been known to drop thrust bearings. The thrust bearings are the bearings that keep the crankshaft from walking back and forth too much, and when that bearing gets chewed up, what will happen is the crankshaft is allowed to walk back and forth, and it causes oil pressure drop. And a lot of times, usually what Ford will do is when you come in with an engine that is knocking with cam over retarded codes, things like that, they will check the crank walk with a plastic gauge. And if it's anything over like 25 thousandths of an inch, they will replace the engine. And that's not cheap either. It's usually about $8,000 to replace this with a Ford remanufactured engine. But luckily I have not had that issue at all. I've been doing oil changes on this thing every 3,000 miles with Motorcraft 5W20, and everything is very quiet, very smooth. That's one of the things that will make a 3-valve last. Keep the oil change. This is not an engine where you want to go, where you want to buy into these extended oil change intervals with full synthetic and go 10 or 15,000 miles, because a lot of times that does grenade timing components. And the cam phasers love to crap out. Also going long oil change intervals, because that kind of causes crud to get in the oil, you know, kind of gunk up a little bit. It will clog the VCT solenoid screens, and then you get a crap running engine because it can't variate the cam timing. One thing I must say to anyone out there who is watching this video, if you own a truck from 2004 to 2010 with a 5.4 liter, change your freaking oil. These engines are probably one of the most sensitive engines out there. It's gotta be. These engines easily gunk up. The oil passages are very small. The VCT solenoids with just the slightest amount of gunk in them will make them stick. And it's a pain to try and get this stuff straightened out if any oil passages get gunked up or anything, because it makes the engine run plain like ass. I have seen, I'm on Ford Truck Enthusiast forums, and I have seen a ton of threads about engines with PO340, PO345, PO349, and running like crap. And a lot of times it's due to not maintaining it enough. These engines, like I said, do not like 8 to 10,000 or 15,000 mile extended oil changes. You're just asking for lash adjuster failure or VCT solenoid failure, or valve train related will fail with extended oil changes. Now if you've got high mileage and you've went a long time doing that type of stuff, then you are lucky, but most people will not get away with that. I won't take the chance. This engine is quiet, it's very smooth, and I'm just going to keep changing at 3,000 miles with the synthetic blend motorcraft. If this engine were a 2-valve 4.6 liter or a 2-valve 5.4 liter, I wouldn't be, afraid to go 5,000 or 6,000 miles between oil changes. But being the 3-valve heads are designed like they are, it's just not worth the risk. Also, if you have one of these trucks, when you change your oil, please do not use a Fram oil filter. If you do, you run the risk of oil bypassing the filter. The reason being is because the bond that actually bonds the glue that bonds the filter media together on Frams is very weak. A lot of times it will break apart and allow oil to bypass the filter, and then you have all type of crap going through the heads and everything and clogging them. The filter media can also tear away. It can actually tear apart, and particles of paper from the filter can go into the heads, block oil passages to the head, like to the camshaft. And once you clog a cam journal oil passage, it's over. It's game over. You have destroyed the head on these engines. These engines do not use cam bearings, and so they don't ride on anything but just a machined aluminum surface of the head. So once you ruin that head, you've ruined it, and you're looking at $2,000 for a new head. That's just one. That's the cost of one head. So now that all that technical talk BS is out of the way, I couldn't help myself. Now let's get back to the truck itself. So even though it has, 142,000 miles on it, it's still very quiet. I have had no issues with this engine. I have had no timing component issues. Fingers crossed. Everything has been very tight on this engine. This engine's been solid. This has been probably the best half-ton truck that we've had in a long time. My dad previously owned some Chevrolet Silverados with 5.3s, good trucks, but for some reason we always had issues with the transmissions dropping like flies. And this truck has had no mechanical repairs like that, such as engine or transmission, nothing. The only thing I did try to do is I took it to the dealership, because these Fords are known with the two-piece drive shaft to make a clunking when you're starting off from a stop. And it's the spline shaft where it enters the transmission, or on 4x4 vehicles where it enters the transfer case. Because they get dried up and there's no lube on them, as they thrust back and forth when you hit the gas, they won't slide. They're supposed to slide smoothly, but these get dried up real bad, and they just they don't slide smoothly. They just go clunk. You know, they go forward real harsh, and it shakes the whole truck. And I had this truck greased. Ford has a TSB for that problem, where they have a kit with grease in it where they grease that spline shaft so it'll slide back and forth smoothly again, but it only lasts a couple of years. I had it done in October. I had it done at the same time that I had that hub bearing done, and about a year later it's back. So it really didn't do me any good to do that, so I've just learned to live with it. It might not be as bad as it used to be. You know, it doesn't clunk. I don't think it clunks as hard as it used to, but at this point, I've just learned to deal with it. I don't want to have to drop that drive shaft again and have to do it all over again. And one other problem I've had with this truck is the CD player recently went bad. And as you can hear what it's doing right now, it does this every time I start it. And I've got to get this radio replaced at some point, because the CD player will change around and look for CDs every time I crank it, and it'll do this for about 5 minutes and then say CD error or something. But yeah, that's annoying. It's been like that for about a year now, but these CD players are pretty well known for going bad in these trucks. I guess they're cheap or something. Hell, I don't know. The headlights are getting a little bit fogged over now, as they're getting some age on them. You know, this truck will be 10 years old next month, and as you can see, I'm just starting to get a little bit of fog around here. I guess this seal, the bond on this headlight assembly, is starting to crap out a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I can get it off with something, because it's not that bad. This side's still fine. You can see it's not really fogging over at all. I've seen some that are only 3 or 4 years old that are completely fogged over, but I've gotten away pretty good so far without having any issues. So after all that, hopefully I didn't bore too many people. So now let's take the truck for a drive.
Read your forms.
I noticed a very slight difference in drone with the new intake. Not a whole lot of difference. I guess it's just because it's getting more air now, but it is just a little bit more droney than before. Sounds good though. Got a nice crack in my windshield too, thanks to a truck with a trailer hauling machinery on it, and had some loose gravel on it. It cracked my windshield, and over the past few months it's just cracked most of the way across now, so that's nice. I have to get that replaced soon. Alabama frickin' roads. Every 10 feet there's a damn pothole. Glad to see my tax dollars are working for me. I'll do a little half throttle acceleration. And there's my new garage that I get to park this thing in now. Just built that about 2 months ago. So new driveway and everything down here. It's pretty nice. And if you want to know what a good 5.43 valve should sound like at hot idle with high mileage, here you go. No knocking. Just smooth modular V8 sound. Alright, well that just about does it for this video. Thanks for watching.